Okay, so here we are in the final part where we'll start texturing the shield here. And there's going to be a couple of things we're going to need to do before we get into Photoshop and to make the textures. One, we're going to need to render out a UV template, and we're also going to need to render out an ambient occlusion map. Okay, so let's take care of the template first. Let's reselect the model here. Let's go back into the modify panel here into the unwrap. Let's open up the edit window, and let's go up to tools and down to render UV template. Okay, and we'll do maybe a 2K map here, so let's set the width and height to 2048. Okay, we'll also uncheck seam edges here. We don't really need to see those green edges on the texture. And we'll pretty much leave everything out as it is. Let's just hit render UV template. Okay, that's going to render that out for us as a map, so let's just save it. Just going to save it on my desktop there, and we'll just name it guide. And we'll do it as a JPEG. Okay, so let's save that out. And we can just close this up now. Okay, and now that we have that done, let's maybe collapse this back to editable poly. Okay, we'll also maybe give it a name here. Let's just call it shield. And let's copy that name. Okay, so we're going to do the AO map using XNormal rather than doing it through render to texture. You can use render to texture if you want. XNormal is quite a bit faster, and it also saves you having to set up all the options and everything like that, so we're going to use that. If you haven't used it before, you can actually grab it for free over at xnormal.net. If you just go into the download sections here, and you can just grab the newest version or one of the older versions here. Okay, I definitely recommend downloading this. This is a really sweet little free program that does a whole bunch of different kinds of maps. Okay, so download that and install it. Okay, and before we can get our map generated in there, we need to export this as an OBJ. Okay, so let's actually maybe throw on a blank gray shader here to get rid of that checker. Just assign a new slot, and we'll just export this out. Okay, so let's go into the file menu, down to export. Go to export to our desktop, we'll paste our name in, and we want to do this as an OBJ. Alright, so just find OBJ in the list there, and save it out. Okay, and for the export options, the most crucial option here that we need to make sure we hit is we want to make sure the faces are exported as quads. Okay, you don't want to do triangles or polygons in this case because XNormal can only read quads, and it'll give you an error if you try to export one of those into it. Okay, and it also doesn't matter if your model actually is triangulated or even has n-gons. If you export it as quads, it'll just cut it into quads, and then we'll just use that model to generate the texture. It's not going to replace the final model that we have in the viewport here. Okay, so it really doesn't matter, just make sure you set it to quads. Another important one is texture coordinates here. Obviously we need to have mapping coordinates on the object. We'll also leave smooth and or smoothing groups and normals checked, and we'll just leave everything else pretty much as it is. We're just going to leave the preset set to none here. We don't really need to pick anything, so let's leave that like that and hit export. Okay, that'll go pretty quick. Let's click done, and now it'll be exported out to our desktop right here. Okay, so let's fire up XNormal. Okay, and once you have it downloaded and opened, you're going to get this interface here. Okay, so we have some options down the side here. Let's go up to the top one, high definition meshes. And normally what you'd use this for is to bake detail off a high res model onto a low res model. Okay, and in our case we only have one version of the model. We don't have a high and a low, we just have one medium res model here. Okay, so we're going to put it in both slots. Let's choose the high def, go into the bar here, and we're just going to right click and go add mesh. Okay, and we'll pick our shield OBJ that we exported to the desktop, open that up, do the exact same thing here in the low definition menu. Right click, add mesh, pick the same one, and open it. Okay, and we'll just go down to baking options, and the first thing we'll do is check off ambient occlusion over here, and we want to make sure we set our size. Let's make it 2K, 2048 by 2048. We'll leave our edge padding here at 4 and our bucket size at 32. We also want to make sure we give it an output path here at the top, so let's click this. We'll save it out to the desktop, and we'll just paste shield in there again, and we'll leave it as a TIFF and hit save. And then we'll just adjust some options here. So we'll go over and click this map box here next to the ambient occlusion, and this will give us the options for it. Alright, so I'm going to take this up to maybe 256 rays. You could maybe do 128 if you want. The higher you go, the smoother it'll be, but the longer it'll take to render. In this case, 256 should be more than enough. Okay, we'll leave this at uniform. The occluded color, we want to make sure that's completely black. And the unincluded color, we want to make sure that's completely white. Also like to set my background color down here to full black. Okay, and we'll leave the other options alone and just go with these. Okay, so once you have those in, just close that. And we're pretty much ready to render this out. We'll also just leave the anti-aliasing here at 2. You really don't need to go up to 4 on this model. You could do that if you want to, but it's going to take a lot longer to render, so I think we'll be fine with 2. Okay, so we'll just hit generate maps here, and it'll start rendering this out. And if you can't see it rendering, just pull the menu down at the top here to notify tile updates, and that'll show you it rendering. Okay, and depending on the map size you're doing and how much detail the model has, it's going to take a little bit of time to render out. It'll also obviously depend on how many processors or cores you have in your machine. I have 8, so I have 8 buckets here. Okay, so I'm just going to pause this until it finishes rendering. Okay, so here we are, and it's rendered out. Okay, so we also have it saved here on the desktop. So now we can just close this, and we're done with XNormal. Alright, so just close that up. And let's actually just go back into Max here for a second. I'm actually going to apply that to the model here so we can see what kind of difference it makes. Let's open up Material Editor again, and we'll just go into the map slot here for the fuse channel, and just grab a bitmap. Okay, and we're just going to go back to the desktop, and we'll drop on the Shield AO. Okay, so just apply that to the model and show it to the viewport. Okay, so you can see just with the map rendered out there, that gives this quite a bit more depth with the shading around all the pieces here. So what we've pretty much done here is kind of almost bake in a global illumination into the texture. Okay, and this will really help give the texture map a little bit more depth once we get into Photoshop here and build the diffuse map. Okay, so that looks good. We don't have any weird artifacts. So it should be good to move into Photoshop and do the next step. Okay, so let's just jump over into Photoshop now. And we'll just double click here to open up our guide. Okay, we saved it on the desktop, so let's grab that. We'll also open up the AO map. Okay, and we're just going to copy the AO over onto the guide. Alright, and to that I'm just going to right click over here on the layers and duplicate layer. We'll pick our guide and hit OK. Alright, that'll copy the map over for us, so we can close that now. And we want to name this stuff. Let's just call this AO. Okay, and our background layer here, which is the guide, is going to be locked. So I'm just going to hold down Alt and double click it to unlock it. And we'll double click it again and name it guide. Okay, and we actually want this to be above the AO, so I'm just going to drag that underneath. And a lot of times I see people try to mask out these UV templates, and you really don't need to do that. You can just set the layer to screen, and that'll remove all the black and just leave it with the wireframe, which is what you want to see. Okay, so that's a quick option to get rid of that black. Okay, and we're also going to set our AO map here to multiply. Okay, it's not going to look any different because we don't have any layers underneath it, but we'll do that in a second. We'll also take the guide down a little bit here on the opacity, just so it's not so intense, maybe like 20 or 25. Okay, and now we can start making the texture here. And if you saw my Mac 10 tutorial from a couple of years ago, or even my Lantern tutorial, I'm going to do the texture on this a similar way. And it's usually the kind of like the process I use to build up metal textures. Okay, so we're just going to start with some color layers and kind of blend them into each other using masks. Alright, let's go down here and we'll just add a new layer here by clicking this button. Let's drag that underneath the AO, and we'll just name it maybe base. And that's not how you spell base. Okay. And for this one, we're just going to fill it with a solid color here. Let's just go over and grab the color swatch there. And we're going to fill this with the dark gray. Don't want it to be too dark. Let's do maybe like 75 on the RGB for each channel. Hit OK to that. And we'll just go over to the paint bucket and fill this layer. Okay, and you can see that I'll fill all the sections of the AO map that were white. Okay, we can also turn this down maybe a little bit more. Okay, so let's open up a texture here. Just going to open this up, and we'll go into this folder here into textures, and I'm going to provide these 3 textures here at the top of the tutorial, so you can download these in the tutorial details section at the top of the page on CG Tuts. Okay, so I just have a big concrete image here that I've up-res to 4K, as well as a rougher concrete and a rubber texture. Alright, so right now we're just going to use the rubber. Let's grab that, we'll open it up. And as you can see, nothing too fancy. We'll just duplicate this over onto other maps, so right click, duplicate layer, pick the guide and OK. And then we can just get rid of this. Okay, you can see that filled all those white areas with our rubber texture. Okay, so let's maybe just turn that guide off for a second. Let's check this out. Okay, and obviously it's really intense right now, and we don't want it to look like this when we're done. So we're just going to build up a couple of layers here and kind of adjust things until we get something that looks right. Let's maybe add another layer here, and for this one we'll just fill it with another color. Okay, I've written down a few colors that I think will work good for this, so let's just change the RGB here to 39, 40, and 44. Okay, now give us kind of a darkish grayish with a slight bit of blue in there. Okay, so I'm actually going to fill this layer with this color. Okay, and you can see it just looks pretty much gray. We're actually going to use a mask here to kind of get some scratch detail into this color layer. Okay, so let's go back up and we'll open another texture here. And we're going to use this big 4K texture here. Alright, and I've been using this one for a long time and it really works good for metal. As you can see, it's pretty scratched up. Alright, let's just fit that back to screen, and we'll also shrink it down to 2K size here. So let's do 2048 and OK. Alright, so let's do Control A and Control C, and we'll go back into our guide here. Right, and with that color layer selected there, let's go down here and we'll put a quick mask on. Okay, I'm just going to click on the mask box here, go into the channels tab, and we'll turn the mask channel on, and then we're just going to do Control V to paste that in. Okay, and you can see it turn red there in the viewport. Alright, so this is going to allow us to kind of hide parts of that gray color that we have here. So let's just go back to the layers tab for a second, and we'll just click on this and it's going to chop that out. Alright, so just click on the color box there. Okay, and it's a little hard to see right now. It doesn't look like it did much, but if you turn the layer off, you can see it makes quite a bit of difference. Okay, so we're just getting some of those, some of the color through these scratches here, depending on what color they are. Okay, so that'll be our first mask layer. We're going to need a couple of these. Let's just check it out. Everything looks okay. So I'm just going to deselect everything by doing Control D. And let's just maybe actually clone this. So I'm just going to drag this down onto the new layer button. Okay, that'll give us a clone. Right, and we're going to change the color here to something a little bit more blue. Okay, so let's open this up. And for this one, we'll do maybe an RGB of 18, 23, and 39. Okay, that's going to give us a little bit of a more blue, dark gray. Okay, so we'll hit OK to that. And we're going to fill the color box here, the layer, with that color. Okay, and I also think we might need to invert the mask here, so I'm going to click on the mask box and we'll do Control I to invert that mask. Okay, so it'll give everything a little bit more of a blue tinge and make it look a little bit more like metal. And now we'll just play with a few settings here. So I'm going to drop back down to the first mask layer here, the gray one, and let's just maybe try a different blending mode here. Let's do maybe soft light. Let's do maybe overlay instead. Okay. Alright, so we got some of that detail back through with an overlay blending mode. Alright, so I think we'll just leave that at 100% for now. Let's go back up to the blue map here, and let's just maybe turn the opacity down this layer a little bit. Alright, I just want to brighten it up a little bit more. Alright, we don't want to go too low. Let's do maybe around 60 or so. Okay, we'll see how that looks. Okay, so that's pretty good for starters. We'll just maybe save this out. Okay, let's save it as a PSD, and we'll save that just into the folder with our textures. Okay, and we'll just call this Shield Diffuse. Okay, and save it out as PSD. Okay, and we'll go back into Max here, open up the material editor, and we'll just replace the AO texture here with the new PSD. So I'm just going to click this button here to open this back up, go into our folder, and choose the Shield Diffuse. And I didn't spell that right again. Something's wrong with me today. Okay, so Shield Diffuse, and we'll open that up and hit OK to collapse layers, and we'll see what it looks like applied to the model. And it's going to look really blue right now. We're going to have to tone that way down. Okay, let's also maybe add a little bit of speck here to the material, just to brighten it up a little bit more. A little bit of glossiness. Okay, you can see it just has a overall kind of sheen to it, and we want to break that up later on with a spec map so we actually get some highlights off the scratches. But we'll worry about that a little bit later. Okay, let's maybe throw a couple lights in here just so we can see what's going on. I'm just going to go into the top view here, zoom out a bit, and we'll go into the light section here of the create panel, switch this back to standard, and we'll just grab maybe a target direct here and drag this out towards the front. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the lighting too much right now. Just want to get some light in here so we can see it a little bit better. Let's go up here and we'll look through the light. And we'll just adjust the fall off here. So I'm going to go down, click on the fall off there, and we'll just drag it out a bit. And we'll take the hotspot out a bit too. Alright, just going to give that a little bit more of an angle. And let's go, we'll turn on shadows. Let's do maybe area shadows. And let's take up the multiplier a little bit for the light. Let's just do like 1.5 for now. Okay, I'm also going to need to switch this to realistic so we can see that lighting. Okay, and we'll just clone one of these lights around the back here, or this light around the back. So let's hold down shift in the top view and just drag that over and choose copy. Alright, just so we have the back lit up as well. And then we'll just click on our shield here and hit Z so we can rotate around it. Okay, so we have quite a bit of contrast in the texture, and it's not looking bad for starters. Obviously needs a lot more work. Alright, so we'll go back into Photoshop here, and we'll just continue to adjust this. Okay, so let's maybe tone the rubber layer down a little bit here, just to get rid of some of the blue-ish color. Want it to be a little bit more desaturated in this. Okay, let's also maybe go down to the background layer here, which is the rubber, and we'll just name that rubber. Okay, and we'll just tone it down a little bit here on the opacity and try to get some of that blue out a bit. And let's do maybe around 50, 52 or something like that. Maybe even 55. Okay, that'll give us a little bit more of a gray look to the diffuse. Okay, let's just save over this. So I'm just going to go File, Save. Okay, so that should update Max for us. Alright, and already that's looking a lot better. We don't have nearly as much of that blue color in there. Alright, I'm just going to do a test render here, so let's hit F10, and let's do maybe 8x8. Just going to turn on my safe frame as well here. Okay, we'll just do a quick render here and see overall how it's looking. Got to tone that spec way down too. Okay, so not bad, not exactly awesome right now, but we're getting there. Let's close this up and we'll go back into Photoshop. Okay, another thing we need to do is also give the glass panels here a little bit of a different color, obviously. Okay, so we'll just go over to Cider, let's turn our guide back on. And I'm just going to grab a rectangle selection here around these two pieces of glass. Okay, and we'll put this on a new layer above the blue layer here, but under the AO. Okay, so let's click that in there. Let's just call that glass. And we'll just fill this with another color for now. Let's do maybe a little bit of a gray color on this as well. Maybe something like that, around 73 on the RGB. And okay. Alright, so we'll just go back to the paint bucket here and fill that. Okay, that's going to fill the glass in. Okay, obviously it's going to do a little bit more work, and the majority of what it'll look like will be controlled by the opacity map later on and the spec map. Okay, so we're just going to do a solid gray for now. Hit Control D to deselect that. We'll just turn off our grid and save it one more time. And just check it out here in Max. Okay. And let's maybe get that text on the front. Let's go up to the top here. Just going to zoom back a little bit here. And let's go over and grab a white color. We'll do straight white. And let's grab the text tool here and we'll just type this in. Okay, let's do police do it all capitals. Okay, and I'm just going to move that over a bit. And let's also open up the character panel. Okay, and I think we'll go Arial black. I believe that's what I used on my first one. Okay, so we'll pull down Arial here, make it black rather than bold. It's a little bit thicker. Gives it more of a beefy look. And for the size, I think 120 is probably close. Let's maybe try 110 and see how that looks. Maybe too small. Let's try 130. And that looks a little big. Let's just do 120, which is what we had. Okay, we'll also leave the tracking here at 100. We don't want to space it out too much like that. We want to keep it a little bit more tight. All right, so let's set that to 100, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so really simple for that. Let's just close that, and we'll zoom in a bit on this. Okay, I just want to make sure that the layer is actually centered to the front of the shield. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of eyeball it into position. Let's put it right about there. Okay, and obviously we need to break this up so it blends into the texture a little bit better than just being stamped on the top. Alright, so for this one we're going to use another mask. Let's just actually close that concrete. We don't need that anymore. Let's open another texture here. Okay, and this will be the concrete rough. We're going to use this to break up that text. Alright, so let's open that up. Okay, we're going to do Control A and Control C again. Go back to our text layer here, and we'll add a mask onto this one as well. Okay, so select that, back down to Quick Mask, click on the mask, then in the Channels tab, activate the mask, and paste with Control V. Okay, and what we'll do here before we go back and actually apply the mask, we're just going to drag it around until we find a place on the text that we like how it's breaking up our text here. Alright, you can kind of see where it's going to mask it out here. Alright, so depending on if you really want it to be broken up like that or if you want it to be a little less subtle, you can just move this around until you find a place you like. And we definitely don't want to remove all of the lettering. We want to still be able to read it pretty easily, so let's maybe move this up a little bit more. Okay, we'll do something like that. Okay, so once you find the position that you like, we'll go back into the Layers tab here and click on the text layer. Okay, and you can see that kind of broke that up. Alright, obviously it doesn't look very good right now. We're going to need to do a levels adjustment on the mask. Okay, so let's click on the mask channel again to activate it. And we're going to go up to Image, Adjustments, Levels. And we'll just play with the levels values here to kind of intensify that a little bit more. Okay, and depending on how much you want it to be broken through or sharp, you can just drag these around. Okay, I'm going to take it down a little bit more. Okay, you also play with the bottom ones here, the output levels, to see if that'll help you out. You can fade it out if you want to fade it in a little bit more, but I don't think we really need to do that. Okay, well, so we'll get it something like that. Let's hit OK to that. And we can still move our mask around here if you want to change the position. Just drag it. Okay, if you don't like the way it looks. Okay, we'll just do something like that for now. We'll see how that looks in Max. Alright, so I'm just going to fit that back to the screen. Hit Control D to deselect everything, and we'll just save this out one more time. Okay, so let's save that over top. And we'll see how that looks back in Max here. Okay, not bad. And the spec map will give us a little bit of a highlight off of these later on. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Go back to Photoshop here and we'll just keep working on this.